Thanks for listening to Live Forever Young Radio. When people start to feel better, their attitude and life begin to change. Today on the show, we have a few life-changing testimonials from some of our listeners that we can't wait to share. Check out the story of 3 listeners and how their attitudes and lives changed by using foundational nutrition and doing the right things to start feeling better. Learn what actually happens to the body when you start to rebuild yourself faster than you are being burnt up by aging and inflammation. So sit back, relax, and get ready to live forever young.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Live Forever Young Radio. I'm Bob, and I'm here with Raleigh today.
Hey, Bobo.
This wonderful day in Florida.
Yes.
How are you doing, Raleigh?
Really good, man. It's a beautiful day out.
Great.
So I'm glad to be here.
And I see today you have your Tampa Bay Lightning shirt on.
Yes, and my Rays. Got to represent both teams as usual. You guys are probably used to seeing me with the sports stuff on. So
yeah, that's great. So Raleigh, today we're going to talk about 2 amazing stories.
Yes.
/ testimonials.
This is cool. So we've been asking you guys for a long time on the show to share what you have if you have questions. We haven't in the last couple of shows, but anytime you guys have a question or something you want to go over or something you want to share, we ask you to send it in. And so some of the fruits of asking have finally come in, and we want to share them with you.
Yeah, so the first story is that a gentleman called the other day, and I called him back. He spoke to Stephanie, I believe, here at the Boomers Forever Young office, and I called him back to see what he was up to and what he needed, right? And turns out he just wanted to call and say thank you.
That's great.
And
what a good
he's
call.
84 years old, and he was thanking us for getting his life back because about 4 years earlier, he had had a stroke and was struggling and, in fact, was in a wheelchair. And then he started to use the nutrition products that we sent him and some of the advice we gave him. And lo and behold, he was able to get up out of his wheelchair. And now, as of right this minute, he can walk without his being in his wheelchair. He can walk. He still has a little trouble with his balance, so he has 2 canes to help him with his balance. But he's able to walk outside and go all around, and he does deep knee bends now for exercise, which is something we always recommend people do.
It was a couple of days ago you talked to him?
It was about, I would say, 4 or 5 days ago.
Man, so this is really recent.
Just recently. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that particular situation and how it was that he got into that place, and which is the same story as people become older, they become old, what happens to them as they deteriorate, and then what can happen for them so they can regenerate themselves and live as if they were much younger.
Right.
But first, we had a second story that happened earlier, months before, where we had a gentleman who's in his 60s, and he was living with his mom, and his mom was 97, and he was trying to keep himself in shape by walking in front of his house. But there was a hill there, and he could walk and get partway up the hill. Then he'd have to come back, and he was come back in. He was caring for his mom. His mom was homebound. She could go from the couch to her bed to the bathroom, and that was about it. Right? And so this gentleman started using the same products as the 84-year-old man did, and he started to feel more energetic. Turns out he could walk all the way to the top of the hill in front of his house and back. And then a little later, numerous times, then he started jogging.
Cool.
And he could jog up the hill. Then he started going to the gym to lift weights for an hour at a time.
Wow.
And he really was feeling great.
I don't think I heard this one.
Yeah, and he asked, is it okay if my mom uses these products? He was a little concerned because how old she was. And so I was like, yes, she can. You're going to start slow and ease into it. And she did. And lo and behold, she also became revitalized, was able to get up off the couch.
Nice.
She was actually able to go to the gym with her son. And her favorite thing at the gym is Zumba classes.
This is the Zumba. Yes. Okay.
Zumba classes.
I didn't realize it started with her son.
Right.
Okay, I
started with her son.
I didn't know that. I heard about the Zumba lady. We call her the Zumba lady. I heard about the 97-year-old Zumba
she's
lady.
She's now 98, going on 99, and her favorite thing is Zumba. Okay?
I didn't realize that her son was the one that got her.
And so what we're going to talk about today is this phenomena here in 2021 with the new science that's available for nutrition and managing your mindset.
Yep.
What can actually happen to someone who is apparently going downhill. Now, this is a universal type of phenomena. Many people, as they get older, go through this progressive dispossession of their resources, physically, mentally, emotionally, and sometimes financially because of the cost of care, and they just have this downward spiral. Right? And for the most part, the society just considers it to be this is what happens. And it happens to people at all different ages. They say the median maximum lifespan is 85, which means even if you never get sick, you'll die at age 85 from old age, essentially.
Right.
Okay? And so people in the society are used to seeing people as they get to be 70, 80, 90 years old, that they experience this deterioration.
Right. Yeah, we kind of talked about this thing, this idea, concept, the nocebo, the collective nocebo of aging, where everybody opts in. They start to see. We talked about it in a show called "The New Science of Anti-Aging." So check that out. It goes into a lot about what we're talking about, and this idea of that this is how it's got to be. So this is what I'm going to do.
And the other people around them just accept it.
Correct.
Right? But now what we're finding is that you're seeing these situations where what looked like someone was about to check out because they're getting so old and frail, that now all of a sudden they can make a turnaround.
Right.
And now they're no longer homebound, they're no longer wheelchair bound, and they can go back to activities that they could do when they were much younger.
Yes.
And their attitude then changes.
Yes, yes, like we were talking a little bit about.
Yeah, so now what is it that is going on that is causing people to have this process of deteriorating over time?
Right, what's causing it?
So one of them is that people need to be able to digest their food properly.
Right.
And so that the chyme that is in their stomach is properly broken apart so that when it arrives in your small intestine, you can absorb the nutrients and become well nourished.
Right.
But if you're not digesting your food properly, it's very hard to absorb nutrients from undigested food.
Right.
And then the next part is the absorption. So as people age, the little villi in their small intestine that absorb nutrients get coated over with a plaque, and it makes it very hard to absorb even well-digested food.
Yeah, the plaque strangles out the villi, and like the job of the villi is to pull those nutrients out so you can use them.
Bring them into your bloodstream.
And if they're smothered out by this plaque, which it does form over time from the things you eat and don't digest fully, right?
And as you age. And so, and then you have the issue of circulation. As people get older, their circulation slowly drops.
To drop.
And so even if you could digest and absorb your nutrients, it's hard to circulate it all the way to your periphery, into your brain, your feet. And so you start to see people deteriorate because of poor circulation.
And that's because the circulation's responsible for not only getting oxygen to not only parts of your body, but the cells in your body, but the nutrition too. The nutrition that you're supposed to be absorbing, that's supposed to be then fed to the rest of the body.
Through your circulatory
system.
system.
And if you aren't circulating it, like I say sometimes, it's like you got a sandwich and nobody to give it to. So you got to get it to where it's got to go.
Yes. The other thing that happens is the level of oxidation. So people are aging primarily because they're burning themselves up with their own byproducts.
Right.
And so byproducts of aerobic life are free radicals, and over time our body is snipped to death by these free radicals. And as you age, you make less of the antioxidants that neutralize those free radicals, and so you age faster as you get older.
Of course, if you're not making the antioxidants naturally anymore, but you're still even taking on. Some people are lucky if they take on the same amount of toxins. A lot of the times as you get older and you've been around longer, you're accumulating more and more and more, especially if your lifestyle is not very good, if you smoke, you eat meats that are overcooked and things like that. Those toxins will build up and it'll be even worse over time.
And it's harder to get them out.
At that point, correct.
Yep. And you also make less of certain hormones as you age, like testosterone. You also make less proteins, less metabolic enzymes, all the parts of human life that make humans able to stay young and flexible and healthy. As you age, you make less and less of those valuable proteins.
And, that's something that a lot of people worry about that I talk to is like, I know that I'm not feeling good and I've been getting older, and how do I make sure that I am taking in and absorbing? And really that starts with your nutrition, what you're taking in, and making sure that you're not taking in things like processed foods. Like in the show we did called Are Fruits and Vegetables Less Nutritious Now Than Before? We talk about the idea that people get these foods that have not a lot of nutrients in them, so they're overfed but undernourished.
Yes.
Right. And so that's a whole big problem there,
Absolutely. And you also are going to have this issue as you get older of having these senescent cells. So and a lot of anti-aging scientists believe that this issue of having very old cells that won't die and get out of the way to be replaced by new cells is one of the main causes of aging, because those cells are not just damaged themselves, but they're releasing inflammatory cytokines, and it's negatively affecting all the cells in that area. And so we'll talk a little bit later about how you can get rid of those old cells that are causing these problems and get them replaced with new cells from your adult stem cells.
Right, revivitized cells, which is really what you need,
Yeah, and then also we talked about the issue of attitude.
Yeah, attitude's a big factor.
And so if people start to become frail and then others start to treat them as if they're frail,
then they start
and it perpetuates. And they're like, okay, well, this is what happens to people when they get old. They start to use a language of old people. They start to have discussions with all their friends about all their doctor's appointments. And the next
it becomes
thing you
the
know,
norm.
They're fully absorbed in this whole concept of aging and losing their physical resources. So
a slow dispossession of your physical resources.
And progressive.
And very progressive.
Yeah. And so this is the situation that makes it so that someone like our friend who is 84 years old, our friend in his 60s and his 97-year-old mom, that's how they get there.
Right. That's the path that a lot of people feel they're inevitably on, but guess what?
Yeah. Now it's 2021.
We got technology.
And we can fix it.
We can rebuild him. We can rebuild him.
So here's what you need to do. If you look back at what we talked about first, was the issue of digestion. Okay?
Right.
So in order to properly digest your food, you want to first chew it very well, so that the bacteria and enzymes in your mouth begin breaking down the food, and then when it arrives in your stomach, give it a boost with some digestive enzymes. Good comprehensive digestive enzymes will make it so that the food is broken down, and when it arrives in your small intestine, it's fully broken down.
Now, you're talking these ones help with the carbs, proteins and the fats that as you get older have a harder time breaking
digest
down.
them, and if you get the right ones, like the ones we have at Boomers, it also contains alkalizing enzymes that help make sure the pH of the chyme is correct when it lands at the small intestine.
Right, I remember you mentioning that. It's important to get that alkalinity right, because if not, it's still not going to be the thing that you need. Your
small intestine doesn't like food that's too acidic being dropped down into it, and it's going to regurgitate it back up, and now you have acid reflux. Right?
Okay.
And so if you digest your food properly, that's unlikely to happen.
Cool.
Right? But then from there, you also need to do something about your villi.
Right.
We're fortunate to have a new product that's been around for about 10 years, but most people still haven't heard of it yet, made from sprouted barley seeds, and it has a compound that will actually dissolve that plaque, move it out of your body, and another compound that regrows those little villi, and now you can absorb your nutrients.
Yeah.
Which then brings you to the part about circulation.
Right.
Right. And so
the delivery system.
Yeah, the circulation of your blood. And so we also now have a product that we call Boomer Boost.
Right.
Which was designed for healthy heart and circulation, and there's compounds in there that make your arteries more elastic,
right,
and also that will stimulate your tiny capillaries to expand and contract to allow the nutrients to pass through and the oxygen to pass through.
Right.
And we've also talked in the past on other shows about pulsed electromagnetic field devices.
Absolutely.
Which you can now get without a doctor's order.
Yeah, that shows the importance of circulation for your health.
And so in that, we talk about PEMF and how you can get a device that you can lie on this mat with a power supply, and it increases your circulation by 29% on average.
Actually, yeah, Anne, who's our head guru on PEMF, she actually knows some athletes that use this. A lot of golfers that she knows because she lives on a golf course, and a lot of the golfers there use this, and it really helps with their recovery time, and they'll be able to get back out and work on their distance and all those type of things. And I think what we were talking about on another show where we were talking about the reason why it works is because as humans, right, we were born and we were raised on the earth, which emits these pulsed electromagnetic fields. Yep. And when you can amplify the effects of them, it's really good for the delivery or the circulatory system.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Got to check that out.
So the other thing is the issue of toxicity that we talked about. Very important to try to get a fresh start. By the time you get to be 70 or 80 years old, on planet Earth, your body's absorbed a lot of toxins.
Yes, we're very gelatinous, like you always say.
And we absorb stuff really well.
Right.
So to be able to detoxify from those toxins, you need certain compounds that are in the products that we sell, and people do go through a pretty strong detoxification. Good thing is you get to control it with the amount of the product you take, so whatever is comfortable for you. But you will detoxify all kinds of things out of your body, and you'll get a fresh start. And this is a big part of this recovery process is detoxing. But in addition to that, we talked about those old cells, the senescent cells.
The senescent cells.
Yep. And now we now know that there are compounds that will trigger those cells to die off. And if you combine quercetin and resveratrol together in a product, it will signal those cells to get out of the way, and then they can be replaced with your own adult stem cells produced in your bone marrow, released in your bloodstream, travels all throughout your body, and begins replacing these old cells that you've had get out of the way.
Yeah, and on a show we did called Stem Cells Need Nutrition Too, talks about how they're the smart cells, because they'll go where they're needed the most, and they'll start repairing what needs to be repaired the most. And so I think that if you were able to make more smart cells, not only would you be smarter, but a heck of a lot healthier.
And we actually carry a product, and they call it immune because it helps with the immune system, but actually helps restore your whole body.
Right. It does a lot of good things. One of the things that Anne was saying about, in addition to the stem cells themselves, is about the nutrition. Right. And so if stem cells need nutrition, then obviously everything else needs that complete foundational nutrition, which is one of the keys here.
Well, the key with it is if you have the antioxidants in it, as we do, you can slow your rate of deterioration.
Right.
Because your body's burning itself up over time. And as you get older, you age faster because you have less antioxidants. But if you can all of a sudden now flood your body with antioxidants, not only are you not aging faster, but you're aging more slowly than you were when you were very young.
Right, and you become like our friends.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so you want to turn it around. Yeah, so you stop the rate of burn, and you can actually measure that with a blood test that will tell you how fast you're burning yourself up. And then you need to be able to repair yourself faster than you were before, which means that you need comprehensive foundational nutrition, which will provide you with the amino acids, which are spliced together to form proteins.
Right.
And your body makes 100,000 different ones.
They're the building
that
blocks.
are building blocks of your whole life.
Right.
And you need metabolic enzymes, which is what creates the splicing together.
The glue.
Right. Now, your body makes these metabolic enzymes, but less and less of them as you age.
So it's no wonder why, as
Right.
you age, we kind of try to accept this idea that it's going to happen, but we don't have to accept it anymore. Because again,
Right.
when you can supplement with these things that the body needs, even though you might get old, the body has a mechanism to repair itself. It can't work if you don't give it the right tools to fix it.
Right.
You can't build without blocks.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you have it. And having a complete foundational regime or system, like we actually built one, is great. And then the thing, when you look what's next, okay, well, I've got my foundation, I've got my nutrition set, but maybe I'm still not able to sleep, or maybe I'm still, I need to work on anxiety. Then if you have a good base, then you can actually start to add things to kind of customize and optimize what it is you're trying to do. And so in that case, if you need a little bit of extra stuff to help you with sleep, you can find a good sleep aid with melatonin and natural extracts that will actually help. And so that's what you have to realize, is that by giving yourself the idea of a base to start with, you can figure out where to fix after that. And a lot of the times that base is enough to get you back on track.
Yeah. And the base is going to do the bulk of the work, because it's going to give you the metabolic enzymes, the vitamins, minerals, coenzymes, all the things that make energy,
Right.
and to help you rebuild your body and to help you slow your rate of burn. So that's the basic idea.
That's it. That's the start.
But then if someone's still having trouble sleeping, a really good sleep aid will help them become stronger even faster, because they'll have restorative sleep. And there are many other possible individual things. If people want a little extra help with their memory, they can get a product for that.
Right.
And that's
Hormonal issues.
And that's the individualized component to this pyramid, right?
Right.
And then what we find with people like the two individuals that we've been talking about is, once they start to feel a little bit better, all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, I thought I was supposed to be getting worse each day, but now all of a sudden I feel better today. And then the next day they're like, whoa, I feel even better. And now their attitude changes, and all of a sudden they're no longer this dying person.
Right.
They're a person who's been given a new spark of life.
Right.
And because their attitude changes, their whole chemistry changes.
Right.
Because if you have an attitude of death and frailty, that's a whole different set of biochemistry than if you have an attitude of regeneration. I've got my life back. I'm going to live for another 10, 15, 20 years. I'm happy.
Yeah. And, there's something that I've read about, and I don't know the exact numbers, but the numbers go like this. A patient who has a diagnosis of a mortal diagnosis, if you actually tell them that they're going to die in a certain amount of time, they're much more likely to.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But if you have somebody that you just say, hey, we've got to deal with this, let's work through it, you can actually end up getting more time out, because the mind, just like we're talking about with this nocebo of aging, the mind decides it's not going to opt in. It opts out of that idea.
That's right. And I like to tell people that call to the office, Raleigh, that are in this frail state of decline, I'll explain this to them, and then I'll say, now listen, don't be too surprised if all of a sudden you start to feel better.
Right?
Because you don't have to continue to go downhill, but don't be too surprised if all of a sudden you start to feel better. As a matter of fact, you might want to expect it.
Right.
Okay? And so people do, and then when they get this spark of really, really great nutrition, all of a sudden they do start to feel better. And then quite often we find people want to resolve stuff. They're like, okay, if I'm going to be around for a while and I'm going to be happy, I'm going to forget about all this stuff that's been stressing me out.
Yes.
Right? And so we'll help them with encouragement and stress management tools like the emotional freedom technique and inner balance and all those types of things that are so good for helping people, including people like Larry, who's one of the co-hosts.
Yep.
Now, Larry, who is not frail,
No.
right, but used to be, Larry, when he was 65 years old, was frail and going downhill.
He was very much one of those nocebo believers.
Yeah, and Larry was the first person that got to experience this new science.
Yep.
And as he got older, he became younger.
Right.
And so now at the age of almost 76, he is much, much, much healthier than he was 11 years ago. And the other day, as a matter of fact, he had a fall on a slippery floor in a restaurant.
Yes.
And it was a pretty bad fall.
Yeah, he was telling me.
Feet up in the air and bam. Right?
Yeah, it was a good one.
And but Larry, because he is so strong from using the new science of nutrition for the last 10 years, he didn't really have anything wrong with him. He didn't break his hip like most people would.
No.
He didn't break his wrist, which he fell on. He didn't fracture his skull, which he fell on his head as well.
Right.
And he basically bounced up and he was like,
I'm ready to roll.
it's like, oh darn, but
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah, and it was funny. I was talking to him a little bit about it, and he had mentioned that when he had fallen, he didn't really even. I mean, he realized he fell, but after he got up, he didn't even realize how quickly he got up. And I said to him, a guy your age that would have fallen that violently probably would have been walking away with a broken hip.
Yeah, or
it's something worse.
The ambulance would be coming.
Not walking away. You're right. Sorry, carted away with a broken hip. You're right. I can't walk with a broken hip.
So, Raleigh, this is what is enjoyable about working at Boomers Forever Young is we get phone calls every day.
We do.
From people who have something or other that's going on. Most of the people are middle-aged to young-old or old people, and we get to see, not just with these two cases we've been talking about, but literally now thousands of people over the years that we've been able to help. And this podcast, Live Forever Young Radio, is really all about that.
It is.
It's about life at Boomers Forever Young, what we learn, what we see, what we're able to help people with. And that's really why we created this podcast, was to be able to convey this information to people.
And share it easily, give you guys a way to absorb it and actually maybe rewatch it. Sometimes you can hear something once, but it's not as good as being able to rewind. Like I love my TiVo or whatever it is. But one of the things that, when you were saying about working here and being here at Boomers, one of the best things that I like about it is that you have the ability to talk to these people one-on-one. You have the ability to do that, and it comes through. If you guys want to take a look, you should check us out on Trustpilot. We've got a 4.9 rating, I think, on Trustpilot, and if you also go to boomerboost.com, we've got some really great photo reviews on our homepage down towards the bottom. Just scroll down and you can look through them, and we've got regular reviews too. But it's a good feeling to know that when someone calls in, you're able to actually help them. It's like I always say, we've got products that work and you've got some people that care. So give us a call if you guys have any questions.
Awesome. Raleigh, thank you, and thanks everybody for watching and listening to Live Forever Young Radio, and we'll see you on the next show.
See you later, guys.
Thanks for listening to Live Forever Young Radio. Check us out at liveforeveryoungradio.com.